Hello, welcome to NGS weekly meetings. NGS stands for Next Generation Shell. I'm Ilya Sher, the author. Weekly meetings are about recent progress and future plans. Let's start. Okay, so Ricardo is not with us today because he's busy. That's fine. It's all volunteer work, so no questions asked even. Yeah, so Ricardo reminded me that, well, we don't have a release script yet, and we should really automate the release. And he is right, and I had it kind of in the back of my mind, but since Ricardo reminded this, that's what I'm working on recently. But let's maybe, before we dive into that, I would like to share my screen and discuss very shortly the milestones. Okay, so where are we? Milestone 0 to 14. The tasks are finished and we need to release. 0 to 15. I'm working on it, but I'm also working kind of mostly switched to the release script. So 0 to 14 about to be released. 0 to 15, some work is being done. We had, I don't remember if we reported the previous week or not. We have update to the site on the dev branch, which is not released yet. We are supporting dark team now on the site, not released, but it's will be released soon. Okay, so what I would like to do now is to share my screen and share the release script and discuss not from the perspective what's to do and what's done, but more as a general explanation about how NGS scripts look and how they work. So since we don't have many updates today, so I thought maybe I'll dive a bit into one particular example of NGS script. So I'll share my screen as a specific window more precisely. Yeah, okay, so this is a script that I'm working on. Yeah, so maybe let's start top to bottom. But before that, I forgot to mention that in the beginning, I also mentioned what NGS is. Next Generation Shell is a programming language, which is a modern programming language for DevOps. So whatever you will be writing in Bash or Python, Ruby, Perl, there is quite a big chunk of these things, the DevOpsy things, which I would like people to switch to NGS for. And I would like to switch because I think people will be more productive with this switch because NGS was specifically intended for this niche. It's not about being better or worse than other languages. It's about particular fit for the tasks. Okay, so with all that in mind, let's go from top to bottom of the script. So, well, first line, yeah, we run this with NGS, nothing particularly surprising here. This is my comment. I'm actually translating the release process document, which you have in the repository at the top level also. And these are all the steps that I'm currently doing manually. There is a review step, which is kind of intended to be manual, but I think I can somewhat, let's say, eliminate most common cases where there are no new changes on master, which is a typical use case, And so the release script will detect this and just continue running without any intervention on my part. Okay, so here we have original document, and this is just a start of translating the document into a script. So NS. NS is a namespace declaration in NGS, the definition actually. Um, this will go away because all files will have this namespace wrapper like you have in, let's say, JavaScript and Python. Right now, without an S, you would have this source branch and target branch. This would become global variables, not very good. I didn't want to expose them, so I'm using an S. You can actually work without an S, but it's unintended and advised against, let's say. So you should use namespace. Yeah, okay, what do we have next? The definition of the main function. What's important, NGS doesn't actually look for this function from the start. What is happening, the script runs top to bottom, and when this file finished executing, NGS will check whether the main function was defined and invoke that if it was defined. So what's the great point here is that if you just have simple top to bottom script, you don't have to define the main function and it will just work. So why I'm defining main function here? Because I expect to get command line arguments like version, for example, it would be a string that will be added later, but I already know that I will add that. And what is happening if you do this? If you do this, if you give the parameter to the main function, NGS will see that and will automatically match the command line arguments with this parameter. So you don't need to do like manual parsing of the command line arguments. It will be just here available to you. So let's go back for a moment. Okay, so what's next? Warn work in progress. Okay, so we warn the user that it's not like production ready script. So what's interesting with warn? The output is going to standard error. I can just show this. Warn A. And looks like this warning with timestamp. Okay, why we got null here? Because n is actually alias for NGS inspect. So it actually inspects the returned value. If you just want to run, that's NGS E, like evaluate. Done. Okay. So what's next? Next thing, I don't want to ruin anything in the current directory where the script is, because that's the checked out code that I'm working with. So for example, if I would delete the build folder on my machine, the NGS binary is actually linked to the build folder, so it just crashes. So I don't want that. I'm copying the working directory into another directory. But let's discuss this for a moment. This temporary directory. So NGS had up until recently had TMP file. So what TMP file and TMP dir have in common is the behavior on exit. On exit, the temporary file or temporary directory are automatically removed. And actually there are several policies about how to remove the file. So in this particular case, by the way, this like requirement to have these policies comes from my friend Andre. He looked at the temporary file and said, okay, what if I don't want to, if something crashed, what I want to see what happened. So I added policies quite a bit ago. So I'm creating temporary directory here, and this temporary directory will be removed automatically unless there was an error. And in that case, this directory will be kept. I'm logging where this directory is. This is not strictly necessary because if you have this policy, I can just show what happens. Okay, let's see. What happens if the script crashes? Okay, I'm creating temporary directory. I don't need any reference to it, and then I just want to crash. Okay, so in this case, if this policy is active and the directory is kept, you will have log, which says TMP there. And I did nothing in my script, in my command line to have that. That's the behavior which is built in. So this log is not strictly necessary. Even if you want to find this directory afterwards, it just all works fine. What else? Okay, 4. 4 by itself is not anything particularly interesting. It creates iterator from this array, and we are going over these 2 branches, which is one is dev, second is master. We have branch directory, which is a subdirectory of temporary directory. What is happening next? We are copying current directory into that branch directory. We clean that directory up with git reset hard and then check out the needed branch. I don't know if I actually need that. I'll figure this out later, but meanwhile, that's how it is. What's interesting about running external programs? Several things. First of all, you see log here. That means that you will have this program logged before running. And this is an example. Yeah, running command ls. Okay, so these things are called options. They must have colon. If nothing follows the colon, that means that the value is set to true. That's kind of implementation detail, but nevertheless, it is useful in several ways, like for example with log. Okay, cd is another option. It's where you want to run the command. Yeah, so by now you probably have noticed that all commands here are prefixed with log, and I will need to figure out in NGS how one could possibly run several commands with the same options. It is a useful feature, I think, and right now it's not implemented in any way. You could potentially redefine the dollar parentheses command, and well, it will work. It will not look good, and it's a bit cumbersome. There should be something simpler than that. Okay, so what we have after the 4, we have source dir, which is the source branch dir, target dir, which is quite clear. Okay, so there are several things which will happen in the source dir, which is the dev branch. I'm removing build, I'm making build, running tests, running this. And you can once again see that there's a bunch of options which are copy paste here, and that's not good. I will look into a way to eliminate this duplication. We can run the script just to show how that looks. It doesn't do anything useful yet, but we can observe how it looks. Okay, so the log of the command also shows with which options it was run, because that was also a recent addition, because it was printing without the options, and then I'm okay, where it does that, because I have several directories and I don't know in which one. Types count. Okay, that is output of a script which is run by this make command. And what we can observe is actually indistinguishable from the release NGS script, and maybe we should actually do anything about that. Yeah, maybe to add PID or something to this log, because, well, it's pretty hard to understand what is going on. You know, it's not like, well, if you do things like that in Bash, typically the commands would prefix the error message or the log message with their own name. So need to think about this, maybe PID, maybe name, to be solved. Okay, so we just went over the script. I don't think there was anything like completely surprising. I think that we have seen several power features like temp dir. It's something that, for example, if you work in Bash, you would have like trap commands to trap the exit process, delete, and and all of this is just repeated with so many scripts that I don't see any particular reason not to factor this out into standard library where TMP-dir is actually defined. And my cat. Okay, so leave comments if you have any questions or advice or recommendations. Also feel free to open GitHub issues if you think of something. Feel free to join our Discord. I'm there. I can help you with adoption of NGS, questions, other help, whatnot. Well, hope you liked this episode. How to say? Like and subscribe. Thank you. See you next week.